So look at me, here I am, 5 o'clock, 30 minutes, Rio de Janeiro City, Federative Unit, Rio de Janeiro, embedded in Brazil, and it's a criminal system with peers on it. You would like to hear an opinion about the war or something like this, we will use the effort we have, the philosophy, and will be applied in any kind of war, considering the modern times and the digital society. First thing we will have on mind, we will review everything, is that the difference between two things not considered indeed corrupted the two things as difference, so they are equals. Logical conclusion number one. If two things are equal by the gap as difference, which implies not be considered by the interest itself or the third interest as the audience of this, it's the same thing, the difference not considered but things equal. It's the same relation we observe at debt and credit, supply and demand, investment, saving, curve. The guarantee and the rights not observed and having the violation of this effort is space, private living, privacy. Indeed, will put me in a situation as any other victim, but I have the right as do the reply. I did. The first conglomerate of data we have is on corporations that violated by guarantee in an era that this has no excuse to be, and also the states. They misuse the institutional and state power. They will cooperate with the war events, for instance, to understand things, but after we expose things that must be exposed. In the same way we did with the criminal organization, we took the opportunity to escape themselves. We will observe one more time that the corporate area, the government and the state in general, it has fails inside. Combined as fail will abandon premise by intentions, unveiled at the very second premise as a result of the axiomatic purpose that you have. And if you do a decision or a sentence, will be beyond or below the rational expectation as application of instruments as paradigm you have. You change the point of things. In the same way, you change the behavior of your macroeconomic curves. If you you advance the curve investment save and liquidity money at the war industry, you will have a contraction at this in some other areas because limited resources we have, and also excuse to do things misguided or in a wrongdoing with it. And in Blazing Act wall, things are much more easy to work because you must cooperate, right? Then we will check the relation debit and credit. Indeed helps a lot. The discretionary debt plus the fixed debt divided by the relation debt plus credit indeed is the all debts you have at this as a proportion, and this will be observed in every single moment of your macroeconomic curve as the composition of this curve But since you corrupted all things that will have a physiological workflow necessary as money, you will need the fake record as physiological need and survival need of criminal groups inside states, inside government, inside corporations. We are charging at the International Criminal Court the misuse of state and institutional power. Consider that this deep web scam will be in touch once in a while with the organized crime by all things they protected and all things they sustained as having the continuity of this. And not here will have paramilitary and warfare as a fact. We observe that the idea as corridor indeed is something that's not new, but we use it, for instance, at the audit to support the accuracy need at that time. We achieved our goals. We could observe that the institutional and state behavior by the essential premises abandoned, observed that the axiomatic result changing the behavior, indeed having the contraction of your legal and legitimacy to do things, which implies the capacity as responsiveness by the advanced movement you did with illicit things. We are having this one more time, not as an exponential thing as for quadrant, but observing the investment saving curve and liquidity money curve segmented at the war industry. And now we will have a movement today, quite simple, quite clear, and the idea will be like this. The first thing we will have in mind, if we are having this struggle between two different nations and it's for real, we will compare with the things recently observed in a moment that we could track the supply chain as things. We will observe that the very first moment we had the one specific nation and other specific nation. Considering that this nation here was in the past a piece of this one that got transferred, and indeed the situation is like this. We will observe that this nation here had something very peculiar by the circumstance we observed, which was a mercenary group inside. Right? This was the general design of that conflict, that, for instance, is still ongoing, kind of the fire is fading on Europe. Now we will have the Middle East and, let's suppose Israel and the Palestine. The Israel and the Palestine, in my opinion, they must have the conflict, because there are so many things as excuse to avoid the conflict that have the conflict will solve the problem. But you must consider this not hurting civilians, that has no interest at all at this, but having segmented the Banax space as an area that you can have, for instance, 19 days straight as conflict, equal conditions, and having a table of negotiation at first to set the point of this struggle, I would say. And then you will solve problems by the conflict, considering, things. But we will have another thing here, which indeed this decision belongs to the nations, as the difference they have, and I respect both. And I will observe that I will have now the nation A, let's suppose Israel, the nation B as the Palestine, right? Right, and here is a trick thing that for sure someone got and had the silence. But why the silence about this? The Israel is 100% Israel. The Palestine that is having the struggle has a group inside. And it's not a mercenary group or a paramilitary group. It's a group with ambition as being state. Here you can't claim state crimes of a mercenary group, for instance. But you will have the mercenary groups linked with some kind of state or institution. In the same thing we observe as paramilitary groups in Brazil or South America. We will check that here you have a group that has some kind of political thing and ambition as be a state. So, Israel, let me make a question. Are you having the struggle against Palestine or against the group inside? If it's against the Palestine, you must have sure that if you do the aggression against the group inside, probably you will kind of recognize, and we are having this as states, this group as a state. Right? So, it's a decision between the nation A and the nation B. Have the war or do not have the war. In my opinion, have the war with a space for struggle, 19 days straight. Because we will check the relation as thing we could observe in the past with the event as something we have, and the, for instance, excuse as variables we will use to do not have peace or to have peace, or have things here like this. So the legitimacy to have the decision as having the decision war belongs to Israel and Palestine as formed nation. If Israel decided to do the struggle against the group that has inside, it's almost recognized this group as a state. So the first thing, difference between this situation and this one is that this group was declared as mercenary. There are no ambition as the state condition. Here is difference. Then you can, keep the show. Because the purpose we observe in the very first moment was the supply chain and how the market changed the behavior. The second one, how the institutions that do the background of the market supported this even by silence. Association micro, association macro, as institution and states, and in both cases sourced at criminal activity as corruption. We are having the charge against state and institutional power misuse. Nowadays, we are about to having the International Criminal Court, or the court, that's military court with legitimacy to understand this situation, that if the struggle is against Palestine, the Palestine has a movement inside that has traits as political movement and state ambition. If the Israel is having the struggle against this, it's almost recognizing this, because you will or you will do an interference in other area. In things, I think that's coming to this point. The difference between the previous war, struggle, simulation, whatever, is that this group mercenary was declared mercenary without state ambition. This one has a state ambition and it's inside a state. And if you are doing the struggle, you must pick if it's against the Palestine as a state that has an internal state ambition, A, B, and has a group inside that has the ambition as B, C, right? If we check our model, in the past we used it to have, right, something, conclusive or at least axiomatic as possibility to do an inference. A, B, and the ambition here C. The ambition here C is part of B with something, could be part of A or something, by the interest as domain of area, resources, or whatever. The question is now about treasonous acts, but probably will be only at Israel, because this area here declared the interest as state ambition. So, anything else we can do with the wild data taxa and all industrial portfolio acting as Portugal very derogatory NATO, but Brazil respected nothing of these things made, including the peers associated with, and by this they must face consequences at the chair level after the regression using the financial paycheck until the chairs, cowardly hidden inside institutions and states to commit crime charged by this, and the source as all things we observe is a physiological workflow as criminal purpose, not here presenting treasonous acts, even hidden inside the states. Reliability, it's my point as discrimination I'm doing all the time. Have a nice weekend.